You guys are so cute.
Now, we know what you're thinking. Illumination isn't exactly known for adult jokes, now is it? If anything, the studio's best known for its more juvenile sense of humor compared to other big animation studios. But while it may not have as many raunchy moments, the Minion makers have still got some chuckle-worthy moments for the adults in the audience. I'm Keefe Nosey with Wicked Binge, and join me today as we talk about Illumination's adult jokes, cleanest to dirtiest. We'll kick things off with their first movie, Despicable Me. Various fart jokes. About as innocent as dirty humor can get. Despicable Me has a couple of fart jokes, as you'd expect. Right at the start of the movie, Vector's decoy of the Pyramid of Giza deflates with the lovely sound of a Taco Bell eater's lament. Later on, Dr. Nefario mishears Gru and creates a fart gun rather than a dart gun.
Yes, because I was wondering, under what circumstances would we use this? But anyway,
Maybe it could come in handy when Wario makes his debut in the Mario Cinematic Universe. Okay, fart jokes are for kids, but yes, some adults laugh at them too. Almost anyone can appreciate the art of fart jokes. The classic butt copy trope. Yeah, you know the one where a character sits there bare behind on a copy machine and prints out pictures of it. Really, you've got to wonder what the Minions actually did with these. Or what anyone does with them on that note. The Bank of Evil. When Gru needs to get a loan, where else should a supervillain go but the Bank of Evil, formerly known as Lehman Brothers, a bank that crashed and burned in 2008 after some unethical practices came to light. It's not particularly hilarious, but it's a deep cut we're sure made someone smirk. Innocent adulthood nods. While not vulgar, there are some details that make the adults crack up a bit. In the very first scene of the movie, a rambunctious child named Justin is being held on a leash by his mother, and considering he would have legitimately died if the pyramid wasn't a balloon replica, it's easy to see why. Also notable are famous paintings like Starry Night in the girl's bedroom, inspiration from old school spy media like Austin Powers and Inspector Gadget, even down to the absolute confusion of the Minions. It's easy enough to see why the rambunctious Minions quickly became a cultural icon for kids and Facebook moms everywhere, but they raise a lot of questions. First of all, why do they have money, considering they have free room and food and no real desire to buy anything, seemingly? Further still, what's with the implication that they want raises too?
no raises. I'm not going to get any raises.
They seem a little disappointed when Gru refuses to give them one. They're an absolute mystery, but a fun one at least, and one we'll be talking about plenty throughout this video, trust me. No villain deserves this. At least the Minions can always be counted on to help their master, even if it requires grabbing him by the balls to keep him from falling into the hideout they're breaking into. Villain or not, that's just rough. Miss Hattie, the true villain of the movie. Really though, the actual supervillains of the movie are absolute saints in comparison to Agnes, Margot, and Edith's caretaker, Miss Hattie. Ignoring the obvious meme, no, we're not going to say it.
Oh, well, thank you.
Miss Hattie is an absolutely vile human being. She uses the kids in her care as child laborers, even threatening them with a stay in the box of shame if they don't sell enough cookies. She also lets a very suspiciously disguised Gru adopt the three of them, and all it takes is him saying that she has a face
Como un burro.
that is like a donkey. Also worth noting, hearing her directly tell Edith she'll never be adopted, as well as Agnes excitedly asking her if anyone came by to adopt them while they were away, were both absolutely heartbreaking moments. Gru is a savage, but out of all this movie's aspects, its funniest has to be how much of an absolute menace Gru was. Within the first 5 minutes of the movie, he bullies a crying child by popping a balloon animal that he gave to him, freezes multiple people in line at a coffee shop, and implies that he killed his neighbor's dog for pooping on his lawn.
Unless they're dead.
That's not even taking into account his child endangerment, reckless driving, having a house that's an almost disgustingly obvious calling card for a supervillain, and my personal favorite, when Agnes excitedly squeals at the prospect of going to super silly funland, prompting Gru to swerve in the road and knock a fisherman off a cliff.
Knocked over!
Now let's move on to our second entry, Hop. I'm David Hasselhoff. SpongeBob isn't the only kid's character who can pull a cameo from David Hasselhoff out of nowhere. In Hop, he appears as himself, acting briefly as EB's talent agent. Since he's been around since the 70s in terms of acting, plenty of parents probably got another kick out of seeing him in the theaters yet again. Don't eat that jelly bean. Fred tries to defer Sam from eating a jelly bean since she might not like the flavor. There's nothing wrong with watermelon, though if she knew said watermelon jelly bean came from EB's digestive tract, alright, she might have changed her tune. It's a wonderful butt, Carlos. We all need a friend like Phil. Per Carlos's request, he gives his buddy a glowing review of his booty.
It's a wonderful butt, Carlos.
Checking into the Playboy Mansion. Hugh Hefner, founder of Playboy magazine, refused EB entry to his mansion. If you ask us, EB has a surefire lawsuit here. Advertising your place as a home for sexy bunnies and then refusing to let one in is surely false advertising, right?
I don't have time for this.
Maybe he just wasn't sexy enough. I could buy that. Up next, we speak for the Lorax. Poor Airman. The Lorax's Airman gives airmail a new, more literal meaning, delivering air like an old-timey milkman to the citizens of Thneedville. His performance during the opening of the film gives him a bit of a cramp, seeing as to how he has to be carried off in a split pose due to stretching a little too hard. Do you mind, Ted? Later on, Ted rides his vehicle right into the window of a Thneedville resident trying to enjoy his shower. Now, we acknowledge that this must have been terrifying for the dude in the shower, but while we don't mean to victim blame here, who keeps their window open while taking a shower? Monopolization. While it's not Illumination's most popular film, it's hard to deny the message of the Lorax's original story has aged particularly well. The satirization of modern-day monopolies on bottled water, looking at you, Nestle, is reflected in Thneedville's selling of air as a commercial product due to lack of trees. It's actually kind of concerning that this barely feels like a satire. Empty-O's. What better way to distract from that potential existential crisis than a bowl of perfectly unremarkable Empty-O's? With 13 additive plastifines and the enrichment of tar oils, these babies will be sure to leave you with absolutely nothing but sheer withdrawal and the ever-increasing fear of your inevitable death. Empty-O's, part of absolutely nothing. How about we continue Gru's redemption arc with Despicable Me 2? Dave ex-Agent Wild, OTP. It takes a real man to appreciate a strong woman, and it doesn't take long for Dave to fall for Agent Wild right after she nearly kills him in self-defense.
Earth today.
One can only wonder where the fantasy was going after the firing of 2 literal rocket launchers. He even catcalls her later, proving that this wasn't just an impulse.
Wow.
Dave is just that guy. WTF? A profanity warning might have been in order for this movie. Well, almost. When Gru finds out that El Macho, on top of being suspicious, is Antonio's father, he expresses his shock with a real WTF moment.
What the father?
Agnes. Poor Agnes. Did you think that Agnes was done breaking all of our hearts?
Oh, yes.
Nope. When Gru encourages Agnes to go ahead with the Mother's Day recital by pretending that she has a mother, she assures him she can do it. After all, she does it all the time. That stings, man. Minions gone wild. When it's time for Gru and his minion spy team to go undercover, one of the latter dresses in a lovely sundress, which unfortunately gets caught in the escalator. It wouldn't have hurt them to maybe put a nudity warning in this movie's rating, man. Heck, later on a minion goes skinny dipping right in front of the camera. These guys really are the chaotic evil of movie characters. El Pollo Loco. In a reference to frickin' Alien of all movies, a hostile chicken named Pollito attacks Gru and bursts out the chest area of his sweater, much like the facehuggers from the aforementioned sci-fi classic. It's not even mentioning the brutal peck to his own pecker. Weekend at Shannon's. Shout out to Jillian, Gru's neighbor, who's constantly trying to match him up with one of her many single friends.
Physical fitness is very important to Shannon.
While none worked out, the biggest disaster was Shannon, who was so rude that Agent Wild had to shoot her with a mild moose tranquilizer. With a little inspiration from Weekend at Bernie's, the two helped her get home safely with the power of puppetry. Gru, you pig! Later on, when Gru uses a trash can as a disguise, he has to flee on foot from a guy trying to throw his coffee cup away, bumping into a woman's butt on the way. The aforementioned guy was sadly a scapegoat against his will, earning him a hearty slap on the face. He may have lost the battle, but he also lost the war. Wait, what? It's time to go full circle back to the studio mascots with the Minions. Abbey Road. Starting on the innocent side of adult references, in one scene the Minions walk past a street sign that says Abbey Road. When they come out of the manhole, 4 suited men walk over them on a crosswalk. If it weren't obvious enough, this is a reference to the famous Beatles' Abbey Road album cover. A very innovative solution. Truly only the Minions could come up with such a brilliant solution to the looming threat of TNT. Literally just straight up pissing on it. Really puts the P in Nobel Peace Prize, am I right? I feel like I might not be right. The Minions' bosses. Well, they aren't exactly peaceful creatures. Thanks to the documentary-esque narrator at the beginning of the movie, we're given the knowledge that minions are historically bound to service towards the most despicable masters they can find. This includes carnivorous dinosaurs, cavemen, ancient Egyptian pharaohs, and even the famed Napoleon Bonaparte. It's played for laughs, sure, but this has some dark implications about the minions' history when you think about it. Who else did they serve? In the ancient Egyptian pharaoh from biblical times, were the minions a part of the Confederacy during the Civil War? What were they up to in the 1940s? The answer is better left unknown, actually. Gotta wonder where they'd be today, though. Nice papayas. Man, what is it with these movies and their compulsion to show minion boobs? There's some weirdly fire hydrant-shaped minions Stuart compliments the papayas of throughout the movie.
Oh, hello, papagena. Tu le pera con la papaya.
Even taking a full-on jacuzzi bath with them at one point. In a Speedo, may I add. For shame, Illumination. Does PG mean nothing to you? Thank you, Scarlett. Heck, even Scarlett has more decency than that. When she makes her debut at VillainCon, she pulls up her dress before her own papayas are exposed. Let's be real, nobody wanted to see that. Except Herb, maybe. Tie it, tie it, tie it, tie it. Okay, upgrade that maybe to a definitely. When Herb is tying Scarlett's dress to absolute perfection, a butler shamefully backs out of the room.
Perfect. Tie it.
Clearly, he thinks that putting on a dress is the last thing on their minds. The strip scene. The minions hypnotize 3 guards and force him to put on quite the show. If there were any doubt of the innuendos here, they quite literally rip all their hats and underwear off and slap each other's butts. I mean, hey, at least Kevin seems to be enjoying it.
Shh, don't tell anyone. We're talking about the secret life of pets next.
Snowball, political hero. Snowball is worth mentioning, not just for his hilarious Kevin Hart voice performance absolutely making this movie, but for being named after a character from George Orwell's Animal Farm. For those of you who weren't assigned this book in middle school, and also for us who straight up forgot it existed, the book takes place on a farm where animals rise up against their oppressive owners in an effort to get rid of them. Snowball in this book is a pig who helps lead the revolution, and while the animals themselves are quite different, the similarities in their roles are pretty darn interesting. Pet private time. Some of the pets in the movie have more interesting self-care habits than others. One example is a fancy poodle who plays System of a Down the moment his owner leaves. How did he not hear that? And a weenie dog named Buddy using a stand mixer to give himself what looks to be a very enjoyable massage. Various adult movie references. No, not that kind of adult movie, just the type you wouldn't take your kids to, or at least we'd hope. Considering one is a reference to the sci-fi horror flick Alien, when the flushed pets disguise themselves as humans and iguana bursts out of one of their chests in a reference to the famous chest burster scene. Sounds kind of familiar, actually.
Uh-oh.
There's also Snowball's habit of crying out to his deceased friend Ricky.
Man, you remind me of my boy Ricky. He died, though.
A surprisingly tragic reference to the death of Ricky in Boys in the Hood. Rip Ricky. Get ready to listen to your favorite celebrity-voiced animals in Sing! Mike the Mouse. Sing is one of Illumination's cleanest movies, but there's one adult reference that'll make parents chuckle. That being Mike the Mouse. The closest thing this movie has to a villain, Mike is a snarky mouse voiced by Seth MacFarlane, famous for creating the beloved cartoon sitcom Family Guy, as well as voicing most of its characters, including Peter Griffin, Stewie, Brian, even Quagmire. In his first scene, Mike mugs a monkey for not giving enough money to his street performance, questioning what the guy's smoking out of his inhaler.
Well, what is this you got here? What do you smoke out of this?
Oh, brother. Literally. Next is Despicable Me 3. Son of a Beatmax. Ironically showing his age, Balthazar Brat has his own almost swear moment when he says, a reference to a type of VHS player of the same name. Okay, personal note for a second. I genuinely thought for a second he was actually gonna say the implied word instead when I was watching this movie. There's just so much venom in his voice. Minions' Title IX violation. It's one thing for a minion to play a coconut bra as a pair of bongos. It's another for said bra to fall down, and for another to seize the opportunity and literally grope him. For shame, presumably unnamed minion. For shame! Rest in peace, Nemo. If you grew up on Finding Nemo, you might remember Nemo and his dad affectionately calling his deformed fin his lucky fin. Unfortunately, it wasn't lucky enough to save him from the minions' reckless submarine driving. Gru has terrible luck with farm animals. When Gru's plane lands in Fredonia to meet his brother Drew, he is immediately assaulted in the privates by a pig, adding on to the list of farm animals who've gone for nutshots on him. Who's got money on cows next? Farewell to Katie's father. After being told that Gru and Lucy were fired, Agnes suggests they take up online gambling like her friend Katie's father.
That's a good suggestion. And let's not go over to Katie's house anymore.
This shows us Gru's strength to fight against one of the greatest villains of all, addiction. Drew should have stayed in the car. Drew unfortunately can't resist helping Gru with his heist on Brat's hideout, hindering his progress due to the experience gap, resulting in, well, this. At a certain point, what are we even supposed to say about this stuff?
You're right. I should have stayed in the boat.
You're a morally gray one, Mr. the Grinch.
Oh, sugar plums! Holiday cheer is not a universal thing. Who better to highlight this than the Grinch, who manages to make a woman swear with all the vitriol of a gingerbread man with no gumdrop buttons.
Oh, sugar plum.
Poor woman should probably invest in some stilts, though. Let me get another piece. When Bricklebaum sees the Grinch flying by, he states that he doesn't know what's in this cake.
But I think I just saw Santa Claus.
But it must be pretty darn strong since he just saw Santa Claus. Honestly, grab a piece for me too, Crinkle Bob. That cake looks really good. Gru's not the only one with a redemption arc. Check out The Secret Life of Pets 2, Superman Snowball. Once again referencing classic media, Snowball's superhero getup prompts him to pretend he's the incomparably famous Superman on the lookout for evildoers. Honestly, good on him for finding new meaning in life. It takes a real hero to work on yourself. Catnip. Later on, Chloe continues the trend of implied drug usage in these movies by being absolutely stoned by some catnip.
My owner might have given me a little bit of catnip.
Gonna have to repeat what I said earlier with Bricklebaum. Girl, save some for the rest of us. Encore! Encore! Next up is Sing 2, Blinded by the Crystal. Like Sing 1, the sequel is mostly innocent, except for a scene where the ironically named Jerry walks in on Billy Crystal, only to promptly get flashed by a part that it seems he'll never be able to unsee. Poor guy. Up next, we have a good old-fashioned origin story in Minions: Rise of Gru. Hugh Hefner, the man, the Minion. We're sure you're as surprised as us that this is the second movie to pay tribute to the founder of a porno magazine, but when the minions snuggle up to Gru for a good night's rest, Stewart is undeniably wearing the man's iconic robe. You guessed it, more minion boobs! What shouldn't surprise you at this point is, of course, the return of the minion boob jokes. Wow! This time, one of the disguised minions' tennis balls falls out from under his dress, which really makes us wonder by the end, is gender even a thing for the minions? Are they all the same gender, or do they just reproduce asexually? Do minions bang? Well, they sure try to at least. The minions want to learn kung fu from Flo from Progressive for some reason. When she refuses, one of the trio offers her some special payment.
Oui, où ça? Hello, chica. Teach-nous kung fu pour smoochy smoochy?
Just think, in some alternate universe, she took him up on this offer. Side note, but the implication that Flo can manipulate her clients' bodies with acupuncture is actually kind of terrifying. Wait, that isn't Flo? For our grand finale, let's hop on the flagpole and pull up the Super Mario Bros. Movie! Guess he got the wrong mushroom. During Mario's fight with Donkey Kong, he's shrunken down to a fraction of his size, prompting Cranky to assess that he got the wrong mushroom. While it's innocent in context, come on, literally everyone has made the Mario's on drugs joke at this point, even Nintendo themselves. Various old school Nintendo references. Mario experts, young and old, got a kick out of the variety of nods to the series and its history. In one scene, a toad at a game store instructs another to blow into his cartridge so it'll work, referencing a common method of cleaning NES, GBA, and ETC cartridges. Also noteworthy is Charles Martinet's cameo at the beginning of the movie, and let's not forget the beautiful musical references, from the Super Mario Bros. Super Show theme to the DK rap. Peaches, peaches, peaches. But in terms of music and the movie in general, nothing tops Jack Black Bowser's beautiful performance of Peaches. That said, the Koopa King's godlike lyrical genius can quite easily be misheard by our mortal ears as bitches, especially near the end. YouTuber Cass Vandepol didn't pass up the opportunity to meme on it either. What a beautiful performance to grace our ears to conclude this video. Bitches!